They say knowledge is a torch passed from age to age, burning brighter with every generation. Yet no matter how fiercely it glows, it never fully chases away the darkness. For every mystery solved, 1,000 new shadows bloom. Tonight, we walk through that twilight, through the strange, unyielding frontier of the unknown, where science, despite its triumphs, still kneels before questions older than civilization itself. Long before equations, before telescopes and particle accelerators, humanity's first questions were whispered to the stars. The ancient Babylonians charted their motions with reverent precision, believing the heavens encoded divine laws. Yet even now, with space telescopes orbiting above Earth and probes sailing past the planets, one question still haunts us. What truly is dark matter? Invisible, inaudible, it outweighs everything we can see. Galaxies spin too fast for visible gravity to hold them together. Something unseen, 5 times more massive than all the stars combined, tethers them in silent cohesion. We've built detectors buried under mountains, cooled them near absolute zero, waiting for a single ghostly collision. But not one particle has spoken. It's as though the universe is held together by silence itself. And beyond dark matter lies a deeper absence, dark energy, a name given not to knowledge, but to ignorance. In 1998, when 2 teams of astronomers measured distant supernovae, they discovered the universe wasn't slowing down as expected after the Big Bang. It was accelerating, as though driven by an unseen hand. 95% of everything is invisible, intangible, and unknown. The cosmos, it turns out, is mostly made of mystery. But the stars have always hidden their secrets. Consider the question of life itself, not the spark of intelligence, but the first flicker of chemistry that became biology. How did inert matter cross the impossible threshold to life? For centuries, philosophers believed in spontaneous generation, that life could emerge from decay, that flies were born from meat, that frogs materialized in mud. Pasteur ended that dream in the 19th century with his sterile flasks, proving life comes only from life, yet that left a deeper void. If life begets life, how did the first life arise? In the 1950s, Stanley Miller and Urey electrified the gases of early Earth in a glass flask, mimicking lightning in the primordial sky. Amino acids appeared, the alphabet of biology. Yet they were letters without grammar. To this day, the script that arranged those molecules into the first self-replicating form remains lost. Was it a warm tide pool, a deep-sea vent, or a comet from the void? Each theory burns bright for a moment, then fades back into speculation. And as we peer back into the origins of life, we stumble into one of the oldest paradoxes of all, time itself. We feel it flow, count it in seconds, mark it with clocks. Yet, what is it? Is it a river, a dimension, or merely perception? Einstein taught us time bends with gravity, that it slows near stars and quickens in emptiness. Yet the arrow that points from past to future, that sense of direction, is something physics can. Even more unsettling, quantum physics hints that time may not exist at all, that it is an emergent illusion, a statistical trick of entanglement. Imagine that. Every heartbeat, every sunrise, every death and memory, all ripples in a frozen sea where before and after are human inventions. But perhaps nothing unsettles more than consciousness, the quiet miracle behind every thought. For centuries, philosophers and scientists alike have dissected the brain, mapped neurons, traced signals. Yet the mystery remains. How does matter become mind? How do electrical impulses, measured in millivolts, give rise to the experience of red, the taste of salt, the pain of loss? Descartes split body and soul in the 17th century, believing thought was proof of existence. But even with MRI scanners humming and electrodes recording brainwaves, the hard problem of consciousness, as David Chalmers called it, remains unbroken. And what of dreams? Those nocturnal realms where logic dissolves and symbols speak. For as long as humans have closed their eyes, we have awakened, haunted, or inspired, wondering if our minds travel elsewhere when we sleep. Freud thought dreams were the language of repressed desire. Modern neuroscience called them the byproduct of random neural firings. Yet sometimes dreams predict, heal, or terrify with precision that defies coincidence. Entire inventions, the sewing machine, the periodic table, the theory of relativity, were born from dreams. The line between subconscious and supernatural remains perilously thin. In ancient times, dreams were messages from gods. In modern labs, they are flickers of REM. Yet, in both, there lingers an unanswered truth. Where does the mind go when we sleep? The ancient Egyptians preserved their dead, believing the soul would awaken in another world. Millennia later, science has charted the final seconds of the human body, the fading of the EEG line, the slowing heart, but not what, if anything, follows. Thousands have been resuscitated after minutes or even hours without heartbeat, recounting the same luminous tunnel, the same overwhelming peace. Are these visions the product of oxygen-deprived neurons or glimpses beyond death? Medicine can stop a heart, but not the question of what beats behind it. Even in the living, the soul's seat eludes us. Remove parts of the brain, and memories vanish. Stimulate neurons, and emotions surge. Yet the self, that continuity of I, persists, intangible, indivisible. Science can describe its shadows, but not its substance. And perhaps that's the thread binding all these mysteries. The closer we approach the edges of understanding, the more reality seems to resist measurement. Take, for instance, gravity, the oldest known force and the least understood. Newton gave it mathematics. Einstein bent space-time to explain it. Yet we cannot reconcile it with the quantum world. In one realm, gravity curves the universe. In the other, particles flicker in probabilistic waves. Between them lies a chasm. The so-called black holes mock that gap. Born from collapsed stars, their gravity so fierce that not even light can escape, they twist time and space into singularity. Inside, all known laws collapse into nonsense. And yet, paradoxically, they radiate faint whispers of energy, as Stephen Hawking showed, suggesting they both destroy and reveal information. But how can something emit and erase simultaneously? Somewhere, hidden beneath the event horizon, lies one of the universe's most vicious riddles. What happens to information swallowed by a black hole? In ancient myth, black holes would have been gates to the underworld. In modern physics, they are cosmic paradoxes, reminders that even our most powerful equations can lead to contradictions. And while the universe confounds us on the grandest scales, the tiniest ones are no less bewildering. Quantum mechanics has shown us a world of particles that exist in multiple states at once, that vanish and reappear, that seem to decide their behavior only when observed. Consciousness somehow appears to affect reality. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. Bohr told him to stop questioning it. Yet today, with quantum entanglement verified in labs across the world, we are forced to admit that two particles separated by light years can affect one another instantaneously, as if distance doesn't exist. This is not metaphor, it's measurable. And though we use it in quantum encryption, in computing, we still cannot explain it. And then there's the quantum vacuum, what we once called nothing. But nothing, in quantum terms, teems with activity. Virtual particles flicker into being, annihilate, and reappear. Energy surges in the emptiness between atoms. Nothing, it turns out, is alive with creation. The universe may have been born not from something, but from this pregnant void. From cosmic to human, from invisible to intimate, mystery refuses boundaries. Why, for instance, do humans yawn? It is nearly universal, shared with mammals, birds, even reptiles. Yet no one truly knows its function. Cooling the brain, signaling empathy, synchronizing group behavior. Evolution preserved it for a reason, but the reason hides behind habit. Why do cats purr, not only when content, but when wounded or dying? Some studies suggest
healing frequencies, vibrations that stimulate bone growth and tissue repair. Nature may hold technologies we do not yet understand, woven into fur and feather. Even the migration of birds remains partially inexplicable. The Arctic tern travels from pole to pole, guided not by sight or map, but by something deeper, a geomagnetic sense science can barely measure. Monarch butterflies, weighing less than a paperclip, cross continents to return to trees their ancestors knew generations earlier. How do they navigate across time? Somewhere between biology and mystery, evolution seems to dream.
And what of human evolution itself? We are told it was a gradual process, apes to Australopithecines to Homo sapiens. Yet the record shows leaps too sudden to comfort gradualism. The so-called Great Leap Forward 50,000 years ago, when art and language and culture erupted almost overnight. What ignited it? Genes, climate, or something in the human spirit that science has yet to measure? Buried skulls in Siberia, genomes of Denisovans and Neanderthals reveal interbreeding and forgotten branches. Yet the origin of symbolic thought, of meaning, remains untouched. Somewhere in the prehistoric night, a hand smeared ochre on cave walls, drawing bison that would never be hunted and stars that would never be named. That gesture, to create meaning beyond survival, marks a frontier that biology cannot explain. The human mind began to dream not just of food or safety, but of eternity. And that dream, that hunger for explanation, has haunted science ever since. The more we learn of the brain, the stranger it becomes. Within its folds lies not order, but organized chaos. Billions of neurons firing with precision and unpredictability. Memories, once thought to be stored like books on shelves, now appear to be dynamic patterns, rewritten every time we recall them. Each act of remembrance changes the past. So what then is truth in the mind's archive? And perception, that fragile bridge between world and self, is an illusion more elaborate than any magician's trick. We don't see the world as it is. We see a model our brain invents, filtered, delayed, and colored by expectation. The light entering your eyes left the world moments ago, but by the time it becomes awareness, the present is already gone. Science has dissected sight into optics and neurons, yet cannot grasp the subjective spark that makes red red, that makes pain hurt. Even stranger are phenomena like synesthesia, where senses blend, where some people hear colors or taste sounds. Their brains wire the world differently, collapsing the boundaries between perception and imagination. Is their reality more distorted or more complete? Some mysteries hide not in our minds, but in our bodies. Consider the placebo effect, the measurable healing produced by belief alone. In double-blind trials, inert pills cure pain, calm anxiety, even shrink tumors. Faith, expectation, hope, intangible states reshape flesh and chemistry. If mind and body are separate, how does one command the other with such authority? The reverse exists too, the nocebo effect, where belief in harm brings harm. A curse spoken, a diagnosis feared, a thought believed, and the body obeys. Science measures, but cannot tame the power of meaning itself. Even our immune system performs acts of mystery. It remembers enemies never seen, learns to distinguish self from not.
And yet, even death refuses simple definition. There are fungi that take over the minds of ants, steering them toward their own annihilation. There are bacteria that survive for millennia in ice, revived after epochs. There are jellyfish that reverse their aging, returning from adulthood to infancy, reborn without end. Science observes, but language falters. What is life if it can cycle infinitely? What is death if it can be undone? The universe seems equally reluctant to declare endings. The Big Bang gave it birth, but what came before remains forbidden to know. The equations reach a singularity, infinite density, infinite temperature, and then break. The moment before time is beyond time. Some physicists whisper of multiverses, of infinite beginnings eternally blooming, each with its own physics, its own laws. But these are not observations. They are echoes of imagination straining against the silence of creation. And silence is vast in the cosmos. For all our telescopes and antennas, for all the equations predicting the abundance of habitable worlds, not one alien voice has yet answered. This is the Fermi paradox. Where is everyone? The galaxy should be teeming with civilizations billions of years older than ours, yet the night remains mute. Are we alone? Or is intelligence its own extinction, burning itself out before it can speak? Perhaps they are here, unseen, microscopic, non-carbon, or folded into dimensions our senses cannot touch. Perhaps they never existed. Each answer breeds its own abyss. Even Earth itself hides enigmas. The core of our planet is hotter than the surface of the sun, its magnetic field shielding us from cosmic death. Yet we have never seen it. Seismic waves tell us only its density, not its essence. Why the magnetic poles flip without pattern, why the field sometimes weakens catastrophically, these remain open questions. Somewhere above that molten heart, earthquakes ripple. They follow patterns, yet defy prediction. We can map stress lines, monitor tremors, and still fail to foresee when rock will shatter. The same with volcanoes, majestic and unpredictable, their fury sometimes sleeping for millennia before sudden awakening. Science can model, but not foretell, the breath of the earth. Even weather, that daily theater of the sky, remains only partly tamed. Chaos theory, born in the 1960s from Edward Lorenz's discovery that small changes create vast consequences, proved that long-term weather prediction is impossible.
The flap of a butterfly's wings, he said, might alter the path of a hurricane. Determinism shattered under the weight of sensitivity. The same principle haunts economics, biology, and even the human heart. For chaos lives not only in systems, but in selves. Love, for instance, defies formula. Hormones explain attraction. Evolution explains pair bonding. Yet why one person, one face, one voice can undo us utterly remains beyond mechanism. Love disobeys logic, crosses boundaries, destroys empires, births art. Science can measure oxytocin levels, but not longing. So too with creativity, that electric moment when the mind leaps from known to unknown. From Archimedes in his bath to Tesla in his storms, inspiration appears less like thought and more like visitation. It arrives unbidden, disappears without warning, immune to will. Brain scans show patterns, but not purpose. The origin of the muse remains invisible. And memory, our only thread through time, betrays us as often as it saves. False memories form as easily as true ones. Eyewitnesses contradict themselves. Recollection reshapes itself to fit our desires. The past, like the universe, expands and warps under pressure. We remember not events, but the last time we remembered them, a copy of a copy, fading toward fiction. The cosmos itself remembers in similar uncertainty. Radio telescopes pick up whispers from the dawn of time, the cosmic microwave background, relic radiation from the Big Bang. But within that static lie anomalies, cold spots, alignments, patterns too ordered to be random. Are they artifacts of measurement or signatures of another universe brushing ours? Even in the sky's faint afterglow, the past resists closure. And what of matter's twin, antimatter? When energy crystallized into particles after the Big Bang, there should have been equal amounts of both. Yet somehow, a tiny imbalance, 1 part in a billion, left the universe dominated by matter. Every atom in your body exists because of that asymmetry. Why? No experiment has yet revealed the bias of creation. Physics, for all its grandeur, still chases shadows. The Standard Model, triumphant in predicting particles, leaves gravity outside its gates. String theory dreams of unification, but its strings vibrate in unseen dimensions, and proof evades us. Some propose that the universe is a hologram, its depth an illusion, its laws projected from a cosmic surface. Yet how can one prove that reality itself is real? In the 17th century, philosophers like Berkeley wondered whether the moon existed when no one looked. Quantum mechanics, centuries later, revived that absurdity as experiment. Particles behave differently when observed. Perhaps the universe itself flickers only under consciousness, blooming from probability into form. And consciousness, again, returns, as if circling the heart of mystery. Consider near-death experiences, déjà vu, or cases of split-brain patients whose hemispheres act as separate selves. The unity of I fractures under scrutiny. Are we singular beings or congregations of competing minds? Neurosurgeons have cut the corpus callosum and found two consciousnesses staring through one pair of eyes. What then is the self? Across cultures, answers diverge but converge in wonder. The ancient Hindus called it Atman. The Cambrian itself was a burst of creation 540 million years ago, when complex life appeared suddenly without clear ancestors. Fossils from the Burgess Shale reveal forms unlike anything alive today. Hallucinogenia with its spines, Opabenia with 5 eyes. Evolution explains gradual change, yet here, complexity erupted in geological minutes. What triggered it? Oxygen? Genetic innovation? Or something beyond environmental cause? A tipping point in life's own logic. And after each mass extinction, life returns with new rules. The Permian die-off erased nearly everything. Yet from that void, mammals eventually rose. How resilience and novelty intertwine. How DNA both remembers and forgets remains unsolved. Some biologists suspect the genome carries hidden switches, evolutionary shortcuts waiting to be triggered. The blueprint may be more like a symphony than a code, motifs re-emerging, transformed. In that sense, even evolution is haunted by memory. But time plays tricks not only in biology. Consider radioactive decay. Certain isotopes crumble predictably, yet others display statistical fluctuations still unexplained. The fine structure constant, the number governing how electrons orbit, seems universal, yet hints exist that it may vary across the cosmos. If so, the laws of physics themselves may not be laws at all, but local customs of reality. And what of numbers that appear across nature without cause? The Fibonacci sequence in shells and galaxies, the golden ratio in leaves and faces. Mathematics, born in the human mind, describes the universe with impossible precision. How can abstractions invented in thought fit the cosmos so perfectly? Was math discovered or created? These questions haunted thinkers from Pythagoras to Gödel, whose incompleteness theorems prove that mathematics can never fully explain itself. Even logic, it seems, has boundaries. Human behavior, too, slips beyond calculation. Why do societies collapse? Historians name drought, invasion, corruption. Yet Rome fell slowly, unpredictably, as if by entropy of meaning. Civilizations rise with myths that unify and crumble when those myths decay. Science models resources and trade, but not belief, the invisible architecture of history. And belief, paradoxically, has shaped science itself. The alchemists, half mystics, half experimenters, sought not gold, but transformation of matter and soul. From their furnaces came chemistry, yet their visions of hidden correspondences between all things still echo in quantum fields and string vibrations. Even the pursuit of pure rationality carries traces of the sacred it once sought to escape. The boundaries blur again when we confront coincidence, those improbable intersections that logic dismisses but intuition reveres. Jung called them synchronicities, meaningful patterns beyond cause and effect. Two people dream the same dream. A book opens to a needed page. A thought manifests in the world. Probability says nothing is special, yet the human experience insists some connections matter.
Modern physics, with its multiverse theories, suggests infinite variations of every event. Perhaps coincidences are bleed-throughs, glimpses of neighboring realities brushing ours. Or perhaps they are the mind's attempt to impose narrative on randomness. Either way, mystery persists. Even time itself seems susceptible to coincidence. Physicists studying radioactive half-lives have noticed subtle correlations with the Earth's position relative to the Sun, as if decay rates whisper to cosmic rhythms. No one knows why. The universe hums with patterns beyond causality, as if mathematics itself were dreaming. Dreaming, yes, the word returns, for perhaps the entire cosmos is a dream of consciousness. Some theories of quantum cosmology propose that observation does not merely reveal the universe, it brings it into being. We are not witnesses of creation, but participants in it. Every act of measurement is an act of genesis. And if reality depends on observation, what of the unobserved? When stars explode in distant galaxies, when light travels for billions of years before touching an eye, was it real before it was seen? The question borders on madness, yet every experiment in quantum physics bends toward it. The ancients would not have been surprised. To them, mind and cosmos were one. Hermes Trismegistus wrote, "As above, so below." Modern science, in trying to divide them, finds itself circling back. The deeper we peer into matter, the more it behaves like thought. Statistical, potential, relational. Even biology follows suit. Epigenetics has revealed that genes are not destiny. They respond to environment, emotion, even inherited trauma. A grandchild's health may be shaped by the hunger of ancestors. Experience etches itself onto DNA without rewriting it, like ghostly handwriting over genetic script. Memory, it seems, is not confined to neurons. But perhaps memory extends further still, into matter, into space itself. Physicist David Bohm imagined the universe as a hollow movement where every part enfolds the whole. Rupert Sheldrake, though controversial, proposed morphic resonance, where patterns of nature learn through repetition. Crystals grow faster if others of their kind have formed before. Species seem to remember behaviors across generations. These ideas hover between metaphysics and experiment, defying the boundaries of both. The same tension shimmers in the question of free will. Neuroscience records decisions milliseconds before we become aware of them. If the brain chooses before we do, what is choice? Are we passengers riding neural inevitability, narrating control after the fact? Yet unpredictability persists. Quantum randomness infects even our neurons. Between determinism and chance, consciousness insists on authorship. That insistence is the seed of civilization. From the Oracle of Delphi to the particle collider, humans have demanded answers from silence. We've learned to split atoms, sequence genomes, bend light, and yet, why beauty moves us, why music reduces us to tears, why symmetry pleases and dissonance disturbs, these elude formula. The mathematics of sound is precise, but emotion is not. A single chord by Bach or a lament from an ancient flute can alter physiology, yet its meaning cannot be graphed.
Perhaps beauty is an evolutionary lure, a trick of survival. Or perhaps it is the universe recognizing itself through us. Plato thought beauty was memory of the divine. Modern neuroscience calls it pattern recognition. But the name doesn't satisfy the ache it explains away. Even the patterns we build, language, logic, story, have limits. Linguists still debate how language began. Was it born from gesture, from rhythm, from imitation of birds and beasts? How did abstract grammar arise from cries and grunts? The first sentence ever spoken is lost beyond fossil or script. And the universality of grammar, the mysterious deep structure Chomsky described, hints that speech is not learned, but remembered. Yet language, like reality, deceives. Words are symbols, not substance. They point, but do not touch. We name the unnameable, and for a moment it feels known. Science, too, is language, equations instead of syllables, and its precision hides its poetry. Behind every formula lies a metaphor. Behind every law, an assumption unproved. And assumptions shift. Once we believed the Earth was the center of the cosmos. Now we know it is a mote in an infinite sea. Yet the more we decentralize ourselves, the more consciousness seems essential to meaning. Without an observer, what is a galaxy but silence? What is time without memory, or color without sight? Mystery lives not only in the grand, but the mundane. Why is ice slippery? Why does water expand when it freezes, defying most matter? Why does turbulence, the chaos of fluids, still resist exact solution despite centuries of study? Engineers can simulate it, but not solve it. The flow of rivers, the curl of smoke, the swirl of Jupiter's storms, each is a masterpiece of mathematics we cannot complete. And still, from that chaos, life emerges. Biologists speak of self-organization, order arising from disorder, like snowflakes forming from randomness. Yet the mechanism, why molecules prefer symmetry, why systems evolve toward complexity, is elusive. The second law of thermodynamics commands that entropy increases, and yet against it, life builds structure, purpose, art. Why does the universe favor complexity at all? Why should atoms become cells, cells become minds, minds become civilizations that contemplate the stars? Physics could have settled for simplicity. Instead, it gave birth to meaning. Even the constants that define our universe, the strength of gravity, the charge of the electron, the mass of the proton, seem tuned with impossible precision for life to exist. Change any by a fraction, and stars could not burn, atoms could not hold. Some call it coincidence, others design. The fine-tuning problem straddles theology and physics like a bridge between faiths. But yet, fine-tuning may itself be illusion. If infinite universes exist, every possible combination of laws occurs somewhere. We live, inevitably, in one that allows us. But such reasoning explains everything by explaining nothing. Infinity is the refuge of ignorance, disguised as completeness. The ancients, too, faced infinity.
Memory again. It recurs like a refrain, as if the cosmos itself remembers being told. Perhaps that's why we seek patterns in stars, in numbers, in coincidences. Perhaps the human mind, tuned by evolution, is an antenna for meaning, sometimes clear, sometimes delusional, but always yearning. Still, not all mysteries inspire awe. Some inspire fear. Ball lightning, glowing spheres that float through air, passing through windows, exploding without trace, has been witnessed for centuries, yet defies laboratory reproduction. Some think it's plasma, others hallucination. Pilots have seen it drift through aircraft cabins. Peasants have seen it hover in storms. It dances between folklore and physics, real yet unreal. Likewise, the mysterious sounds of the earth, the sky trumpets, low-frequency hums reported across continents have baffled scientists. Some blame atmospheric resonance, others tectonic vibrations. Yet the uniformity of description across cultures suggests something fundamental. The planet itself may sing in frequencies we cannot yet explain. And deep below, in caverns where no light penetrates, new life forms appear that defy metabolism as we know it. Bacteria that breathe rock, feed on radiation, survive where chemistry should fail. extrophiles thrive in acid and ice, as if life mocks definition. Perhaps it is not rare in the universe, but inevitable wherever conditions allow molecules to conspire. Still, the leap from chemistry to consciousness remains the greatest chasm. Artificial intelligence mimics learning but not awareness. No algorithm feels sorrow or wonder. We can code simulation but not sentience. What makes a mind more than its mechanics? We cannot say. Perhaps the question itself is flawed. Maybe consciousness is not produced by matter, but revealed through it, like light through stained glass, unique in every window, yet born of the same sun. If that seems mystical, so be it. The border between science and mysticism has always been porous. Newton, father of physics, spent more time on alchemy than calculus. Kepler sought God's geometry in planetary orbits. Einstein spoke of cosmic religious feeling. Even the most rational minds kneel eventually before the irrational vastness they unveil. The universe, it seems, will not give itself entirely to equations. It requires reverence as well as reason. And so we continue, not to master, but to witness, to name the unnameable even as it retreats, to live in the tension between certainty and wonder. For perhaps the greatest mystery of all is that we care, that curiosity burns in us despite futility, that the unknown calls and we answer again and again across millennia. From the first spark struck from stone to the glow of a satellite orbiting Mars, humanity's progress has been one long conversation with mystery, half discovery, half devotion. Every answer births a deeper question. Every triumph humbles its conqueror. And still the universe waits, silent, radiant, unknowable.
Yet, as the centuries unfolded, mystery adapted, refusing extinction. Each generation believed itself on the brink of total knowledge, and each found itself, instead, surrounded by deeper dark. In the 19th century, scientists claimed physics was nearly complete. Then relativity and quantum theory shattered that illusion. In the 20th, we thought the genome would decode life, and discovered instead that genes are only part of a vast orchestra of epigenetic rhythm. Knowledge expands not as a sphere, but as a coastline. The more it grows, the longer its boundary with the unknown. Consider something as simple as laughter. Why do we laugh?
Biologists say it bonds groups, releases tension, signals safety. Yet laughter erupts in dreams, in solitude, in madness. Chimps laugh when tickled, rats when playing. Laughter has rhythm, melody, contagion, but no clear purpose. It is the body's poetry, laughter without reason, science without hypothesis. The same enigma lives in music. Every culture creates it, every heart responds. But why certain intervals soothe and others wound remains a mystery. Infants recognize harmony before language. Sound carries emotion older than thought. Perhaps, as Pythagoras believed, the universe itself is built upon vibration, and music is our dim remembrance of that cosmic chord. Even silence, paradoxically, is not silent. Quantum fluctuations murmur in the vacuum. The human ear hums with internal resonance, and the cosmic microwave background fills every void with ancient whisper. The universe cannot be mute because existence itself is motion. Motion, another word we think we understand, but beneath it lies quantum strangeness. When an electron orbits a nucleus, it does not circle like a planet. It exists everywhere its probability allows. Between one location and the next, it does not move, it reappears. Movement at its core may be discontinuous, like frames of film flickering too fast for perception. Reality itself could be a sequence of moments, still images projected by an unseen hand. That unseen hand need not be divine. It may be mathematics itself, unfolding as time. Yet mathematics, though pure, contains paradoxes no logic can heal. Gödel showed that any system rich enough to describe arithmetic will contain truths it cannot prove. Thus, even the language of certainty carries uncertainty in its heart. Perhaps that's why randomness persists. The digits of pi never repeat. The decay of atoms is unpredictable, and even the weather of the quantum world resists compression. Some physicists suspect true randomness does not exist, that behind chaos lies hidden order we cannot yet perceive. Others think the opposite, that chance is fundamental, the breath of creation itself. This tension between order and chaos repeats in every scale: galaxies, storms, hearts, economies. Benoit Mandelbrot's discovery of fractals revealed that complexity arises from simplicity repeated infinitely. Coastlines, lungs, lightning all follow patterns that self-resemble across magnitudes. Yet why nature chooses these forms remains unspoken. The equations describe, but do not explain.
And explanations themselves falter when faced with meaning. Why should there be laws at all? Why not absolute randomness, a cosmos of unstructured noise? To even ask is to assume reason, but reason perhaps is local. The mind imposes it upon the void, carving coherence from chaos because it must. In that carving,
we find morality. Science can describe what is, but never what ought to be. The laws of motion do not forbid cruelty. Thermodynamics has no interest in justice. Yet the human heart burns with conscience, with empathy that evolution struggles to justify. Altruism contradicts survival, yet persists. Bees die defending their hive. Humans die for strangers. Somewhere in our biology hides an ethics unaccounted for. Love of beauty, too, escapes Darwinian logic. Why does the peacock bear such burden of feathers? Why does art exist when it hinders survival? Evolution explains sexual selection, yet not the ache behind it, the yearning for transcendence disguised as attraction. Perhaps art is nature's rebellion against its own pragmatism. Even sleep, that nightly surrender, defies full understanding. We spend a third of life unconscious, paralyzed, dreaming. Why? Rest, memory consolidation, neural repair, partial answers. Yet dolphins sleep with half their brains awake. Birds dream in flight, and some fish never fully sleep at all. Sleep may not be rest, but rhythm. The universe's pulse written into biology. And dreams, again they surface, remain the most intimate mystery of all. In them, logic dissolves, time fractures, the dead speak. Ancient cultures built temples to dreams, used them for healing, prophecy, communion. Modern science calls them neural noise, but the symbols they birth shape art and religion. The dream world may be the original theater of consciousness, older than language, older than thought. Then there are mysteries of the collective mind. Why do crowds move as one organism? Why do ideas spread like contagion? Memes, once metaphor, are now biology of culture. Yet the mechanism of transmission, the alchemy of persuasion, remains obscure. Entire nations can be possessed by belief, entire centuries by delusion, and logic stands helpless. Science, born to dispel superstition, sometimes becomes its own. Equations are chanted, probabilities prayed over, theories defended with zeal equal to faith. The boundary between knowledge and belief is not a wall, but a mirror. Every age believes its own myths to be truths. And yet, within that mirror, humanity persists in searching. Deep underground, detectors wait for neutrinos, ghost particles that pass through matter as if it were air. Billions stream through your body each second, unnoticed, unresisted. We know they exist, but not why they have mass, or why they oscillate between identities like actors changing masks. Their mystery touches the origin of the universe itself. Above, in space, pulsars beat with atomic precision, the corpses of stars spinning fast. At the opposite extreme, in the vast emptiness between galaxies,
the intergalactic medium remains only half known. Filaments of invisible gas connecting clusters like nerves in a cosmic brain. When astronomers mapped it, the resemblance to neural networks was uncanny. Is the universe conscious? Probably not, but the metaphor is too seductive to dismiss. Even our sun, so familiar, keeps secrets. Its magnetic cycles, its flares, its corona, hotter than its surface, for reasons still unknown. Every few decades, the solar wind surges unpredictably, threatening our satellites, our grids, our fragile civilization. We can predict eclipses for millennia, but not tomorrow's storm on our own star. Closer still, the human heart puzzles in its own way. It beats without command, synchronized to invisible impulses, sometimes ceasing and restarting with no clear reason. Cases of spontaneous remission, miraculous recovery, defy medicine's arithmetic. There are those declared dead who rise hours later, hearts reawakened. Science records but cannot explain. And across the threshold of life, reports continue. Shared death experiences, sudden insight, final lucidity in dementia patients moments before death. The brain, thought to be fading, glows briefly brighter, as if lighting the path out of itself. What flickers there? Chemistry or revelation? Meanwhile, the natural world hides technologies we barely understand. Bees navigate by polarized light. Bats map space with ultrasound. Whales communicate across oceans at frequencies that traverse the globe. Plants, once thought passive, signal chemically, remember droughts, anticipate light. The line between sentience and response blurs. Fungi connect forests in vast underground networks, the wood wide web, sharing nutrients, warnings, perhaps even information. A tree attacked by insects triggers defenses in its neighbors. Intelligence, it seems, need not require a brain. And beyond Earth, the enigma deepens. Mars once had rivers. Europa and Enceladus hide oceans beneath ice. Life may simmer there unseen. Yet even if we find microbes, the greater question remains. Why does the universe create life at all? Is it accident or necessity? And perhaps that unknown is not outside us, but within. Mystics across ages have claimed that the deepest truths lie in silence, in introspection, where the observer and observed dissolve. Neuroscience can measure meditation's effects on the brain, but not the experience of unity it produces. Enlightenment, in that sense, remains a phenomenon science can map but never enter. Still, the pursuit continues. The Large Hadron Collider smashing particles, the Webb telescope peering through time, biologists rewriting genes, astronomers listening for whispers from exoplanets. Each breakthrough answers one question and breeds 10 more. Knowledge, like the universe, expands toward infinity. And yet,
amid all this, the simplest mysteries remain unresolved. Why do we sleepwalk? Why are identical twins separated at birth live eerily parallel lives? Why do we sometimes sense being watched, seconds before turning to meet another's gaze? Science records correlation, but not cause. There is more between neurons than electricity. Perhaps we live not in the universe, but as the universe, a self-aware fragment observing itself through human eyes. The atoms of your body were forged in stars, the iron in your blood from supernovae, the carbon from dying suns. To look outward is to look inward across billions of years. And still, the question repeats, why is there something rather than nothing? No equation answers it. No experiment can. Every law of physics assumes existence before describing it. The moment of creation remains the ultimate silence, and perhaps that silence is not absence, but fullness beyond measure, a mystery too vast to articulate, too intimate to escape. The story of science is not the conquest of mystery, but its refinement. We have learned to ask better questions, to name our ignorance with elegance. Each unsolved enigma, dark matter, consciousness, time, love, is not failure, but invitation. And though the list of the unexplained stretches beyond counting, perhaps its number is not 100, but infinite. For mystery is not a blemish upon reality, it is its heartbeat.